sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and welcome to A Million Ways to Make $1 Million.
It's awesome.
You know, when we set out with this concept of creating this platform, it's almost with you in mind, or people like you, that this, you know, as we've raised to our funds and we meet these amazing clients and I have these great friends and network, and, you know, we find that there's so many different ways that people are generating their wealth.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people when they're good at something. You know, you are as diverse as anyone you're going to come across, especially for your age. And I think that's one of the best compliments you could give, is that we wanted to give people a platform where if they wanted to either excel the current field that they're in, or if they weren't sure what they wanted to do, that they could come and listen to an episode here or learn from people. And you have your hand in a lot of different pots, and it's pretty cool how you're going about things. And from the first time I met you, you know, I mean, which wasn't overly long ago, but we stayed after a round of golf and chopped it up in the parking lot, heading into Halloween,
it was
to get home.
That's right.
To trick or treat. But man, when you are just around somebody that is up to things and up to things at a high level, the energy is contagious. That's what I felt from you. I'm excited for people to hear your story, to be able to come and find you. I love some of the stuff that you're putting out content wise. For sure. And I'm excited for people to hear how you got to where you are today. So
cool, man.
Thanks for being here.
No, this is awesome. And likewise, dude, I could tell that you're just moving stuff around, and I'm attracted to that. I'm at that kind of stage of my life where I really care who I spend time with. And dude, it was cool because it was kind of a chance meeting, and we just kind of took advantage of it. We've already done a business deal. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, man, it's cool to, you know, my best friends are my business partners. No doubt. Like if you look at my Instagram or you see where I'm traveling or things I'm doing, it's almost exclusively with business. It's either my family or business partners. And so it's kind of cool to have people that you work with that you actually like. Makes a difference, because then you're kind of shoulder to shoulder and stuff. So yeah, man, this is a real treat for me.
Yeah. Well, I feel that if people got a sense of your social media, and I know that you've got some thoughts around social media, and I'd love to dive into that a little bit further, but they're going to see that you've created a pretty great life for yourself, I would believe, by most all standards.
Yeah.
And one thing that I would hate for young entrepreneurs to see is, you know, or let me rephrase that a little bit better, but if I could share a message to young entrepreneurs, I feel like they're going and asking, Allan, what's your schedule like today? And if they did that, they're going to see that you get after it. You're busy. Listen, I've been in contact with you quite a bit over the last couple months. You have full days. You also spend time as a dad and travel and do some of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like, man, I don't know if Allan was always traveling like this when he was getting these businesses off the ground, or always, you know, taking off mid-afternoon to go coach a football team or some of those things. I think that there was probably a different day in the life a few years back as you were building all of this. And that's what I hope to get into today. And we'll talk more about what your day-to-day now looks like, but mixed with another common conception of, you know, millionaires have 7 different streams of income. And I think that would fit in your case, but oftentimes that's after they've generated their wealth through some sort of primary vehicle, and then they branch out. And so I understand where you're at. I hope that people can hear how you've gotten to where you're at, but I'd love to go back a little bit further to the early days of life. I like to ask people about their thoughts on formal education. Yeah. You know, I think that sometimes that starts with the path that they're going on. Like, is college for me? Can I do college? Yeah. You know, tell me a little bit about that time in your life where you said, all right, I'm in high school am I going to attend college or am I going to go start all these businesses? Where were you at on that, in that aspect?
Yeah, dude, it's funny because you're like bringing up all these subjects that I'm like actually very, very passionate about. And I'm just going to throw the conclusion out before I get into the backstory.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to convince my children to not go to college. And I have a law degree. I went to a lot of school. But now if my son's like, hey, I want to be a veterinarian, or my daughter's like, hey, I want to be a CPA for whatever reason, then it's like, okay, you have to go to school for that. But if someone's like, no, I don't know what I want to do, I'm going to go figure it out in college. No, go find a job, go get some experience in an industry that you think you might like, and start making some connections and hustling that way. So that's kind of the conclusion, is I'm going to try to convince my children to not go to school. It's just overpriced. Like, I feel like the government's kind of taking advantage of us, the Department of Education, backing loans and all these things.
Allan, I've heard entrepreneurs that don't have a background or a history of formal education have a similar stance. It's not every day that someone has gone to as much schooling as you have.
Yeah.
You know, how many years would you say that formal education did you go to?
Well, dude, and I got 4 degrees in my undergrad. So my undergrad took me 6 years as opposed to 4, but I got degrees in philosophy, psychology, chemistry, and Spanish. And then I went to law school. So what was it? It's like 9 years, but you could do what I did in like 7.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me, I would love to know your thought process, because obviously you signed up for those classes, those degrees that you got, those majors, and then chose to continue on into law school. Tell me what your viewpoint back then was and why you chose to go that route.
Dude, because I grew up always hustling. I was always going to the neighbors, hey, can I rake your leaves? You know, I had a newspaper route every day of the week, starting when I was like 10 years old on my bicycle, man. I'd go around, chuck newspapers, make a few bucks. And so, I think it's in my blood. It's like part of my personality. Like, I like cars. It's like that type of thing. Like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, I like cars. I like sports. I like golf. I'm an entrepreneur. It's not what I do. It's who I am. But I got to this point in my life where, and I grew up and, we weren't, I don't like throwing around the word poor, but pretty humble beginnings, right? My dad was like a car mechanic, and I slept on the floor for the first 6 or 7 years of my life next to my brother. There were 4 of us in one bedroom with 2 beds. And I think I got stuck a little bit and back then, and for my parents, it was a badge of honor. Like, hey, my son graduated from college, right? They were in that generation where, which I get, I understand that. And I remember telling my dad, who's, he passed away about 15 years ago, that I was going to law school, or I was thinking about it. And man, he was pushing me hard. But I think he was doing that more for him. I think it was a little for me, but he wanted a son that went to law school, right? So that was kind of the track when I was doing my undergrad. I actually had a failed business after I graduated with my undergrad before I went to law school. So there was a failed business in there, a couple year gap. Then I go to law school. But I think I went to law school with the mentality that, hey, I'm going to hang a shingle. I'm going to have a law firm. I'm going to do something in business. This is just going to, I'm going to rub shoulders with different types of people. It's going to change the way I think. And it did all that. And I actually, one of my businesses is that I'm a named partner in a law firm here in Arizona, but I don't practice law. But Ernst, Brown and Draper, that's the name of a law firm here, and we're actually doing really well. And, I've been in that office like twice in the last couple of years. But that was kind of my mentality back then was, it was this quasi, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know how to do it. The education felt more like a safety net. So I ended up practicing law for a few years after I graduated. I passed the bar. I did the whole thing, dude. I graduated in the top of my law school class. I was like in the top 15%. I was on Law Journal. I went to ASU. That's what originally brought me to Arizona.
All right.
The interesting thing is that, ASU has a really good law school, like top 20-something law school. People think of it as a party school, which it definitely is. But did that whole thing. I was working for one of the largest law firms in the world, a firm that's it's all over the world, but they have an office here in Phoenix, Greenberg Traurig. And those guys are, man, that you keep that suit is buttoned all day long type of law firm, right? And I have a really cool story that kind of it kind of shook me up. So I'm in there and I'm doing doc review. And for people that don't know, first year associates, they spend time like just reviewing like depositions. It's like really boring, dude. Like you're looking for like a needle in a haystack type of thing. But I'm reviewing this deposition that's like 6 months old. And I work for arguably the best commercial litigator in the Southwest. This guy, everybody goes to him, all the big companies. This guy just freaking balls. And I'm reading this deposition that he's giving, and it's, you know, he's asking this guy questions, trying to get the background before he gets into questions about the case. And he's like, hey, tell me about where you grew up, blah, 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 blah. This guy, his client, ends up, you know, saying that he went to law school and he practiced law. And I could tell that my boss, he didn't know it. And I'm just sitting in my office, closed door, reading this deposition that was 6 months ago. And he's like, oh, so my boss is like, oh, he went to law school. He's kind of confused. He's like, well, why did you quit practicing law? Now, keep in mind that this client of ours is a very, very, very successful businessman, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And he answers my boss, and he's like, well, you know, I got to the point where I realized I didn't own anything. And I wasn't there, but dude, I could feel this like awkward tension because he's telling the biggest, baddest freaking commercial litigator in the Southwest that, you know, what kind of moved him off of this trajectory. And I'm in there in my office all by myself, and I kind of look up and I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, I got to freaking own something. And so it was that moment that I'm like, I need to get back into that, you know, that mentality of creating a business. It wasn't until probably a year and a half later that I actually pulled the trigger, but that's what started, man. And it was my first business was a pest control company. So,
wow. So I want to touch on a couple things that I heard in that. One of them was you finished school and then started a business somewhere in there. So what I heard in that was there a possibility that you were just kind of, you know, graduating to graduate as like a checklist, but you knew you were going to start a business?
Absolutely, especially toward like the last year. Okay. It was like we had already started talking about it, and so I was just getting to the finish line.
Yeah, that's kind of my stance on formal education is that if you don't know what you're going to do, you might as well be going to school and around people that are striving to things. And then if that becomes out of alignment for you, then stop and go do what you're meant to go do. And listen, if you know you're going to start a business, well, maybe don't waste time on school unless it's strategic that's going to help the business that you're going into.
For sure.
I hear that what I heard at least is that now you go do this business. It didn't work out the way you intended it to.
Yeah.
Right? You called it a failed business.
Yep.
My friend Jason taught me this quote that he says he comes out of experience or comes out of things with either confidence or experiences. He doesn't have any failures. So like either comes out on the other side with confidence, like I can go do that again, or he comes out of it with experience, like, all right, I probably won't do a couple of those things again.
Yeah.
So you have this failed business. It's like, all right, was there any doubt of like, maybe this entrepreneur thing isn't for me? Maybe I'll go to law school. And that's what led you to law school? Was it a little bit of a kick in the teeth and like, all right, hey, I'm going to look at some other options maybe?
I think so. I think it was, you know, maybe I'm not cut out for this and I need something more secure. And that led me to law school. I was also kind of justifying it like, should I get an MBA or should I go to law school? Yeah. With that, like, I'm going to get back into it someday. Yeah. But no, I think you're right. I think it was like, hey, I need something safer. And anything safer than business. Anything, right? Yeah. It's like, but at the same time, it's not, you know, like when I, you know, verify income for certain employees that are, you know, trying to get a mortgage or something. And then those same mortgage companies call me and they're like, I don't know, like it's risky running a business. And it's like, I'm responsible for like several hundred people's jobs. And anyway, it's just kind of crazy, but.
So was there any family at play? Were you married at the time? Did you have any kids that heightened this sense of I need some security? Or was this just a, this is the next step for me. I'm going to go find something that I consider more secure I'm going to go do something that's pretty reputable. I'm going to be an attorney.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to law school. What was that feeling of? Was it for future security, or was it security immediately? Because it's a little bit of a play to go to law school, right? Like, it's going to take some time before that, starts producing.
I was married at the time. So after I couldn't get the business off the ground.
Yeah, there's some pressure. The reason I wanted to say is that what I heard in that was some urgency around security.
Yeah.
Oftentimes around entrepreneurs, or where I would see it might halt somebody that wanted to become an entrepreneur, is they kind of just, there was now someone else in play that they felt responsible for, or, it's a hard enough journey on their own. If you don't have full support from another person, it might be an even more difficult journey. So I was just curious if what was, heightening that sense of, I need some security now.
It's funny because there were all these things, right? So I felt kind of I felt this moment where it's like my business didn't get off the ground. I took this, like, it wasn't minimum wage, but it wasn't much above it, job at a bank. And so I was scrambling a little bit, just recently married. I really like logic puzzles. I can be like a huge nerd sometimes. And so I was like online, just like doing some research. And I figured out that the LSAT, which is the law school assessment test or whatever, it's like pre-law school test.
Yeah.
That it's basically like logic puzzles. And so I'm like, dude, I think that'd be fun. So and they release full length practice LSAT. So LSATs that they've given in the past, they'll release the actual LSAT.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool because you can like see how you did and then you can score it and the whole thing. So I took one under time circumstances, the very first one I took, and I absolutely crushed it, dude. And I was just doing it for fun. I just doing the logic puzzles. But I scored like, and then you can look back and see, like, if I took it at that time when they really took it under time, like all that, like when it counted, they break it down by percentile. And I scored in like the 85th percentile or something. And I had never studied anything for it. So I took it and I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at that. And I'm like, maybe I'll take the LSAT, right? So there was a bunch of confusion, and that's actually what led me to like down the law school road versus going to like MBA and stuff. But there was
maybe some natural ability to perform in that,
dude. And one thing that I think is very important is that we don't settle, for something good at the expense of something great. And it's very common as human beings for us to attain something of status, of money, of relationship, and call it good. And not only that, but justify going for something else because you already have it and it will change your position. The people that had the hardest time understanding why I would leave Phoenix and go start a pest control company, it wasn't my family, it wasn't my parents, it wasn't like, my high school buddies, it was my law school friends. Because they had been there with me and they're like, wait, what? Why would you do that? And it's like, well, I think there's something better out there. And I'm not going to allow the fact that I did something good to stop me from doing something better. Like, I'm already a lawyer. I'm good. I'm making good money, supporting my family. Like, I'm good. I'll be set for life. Dude, that's it. And it's hard because it like makes sense, right? Like, dude, you put all that time into law school. And it's like, yeah, I did. I'm not going to let that be the reason that I don't go for something greater,
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your inner circle when you, like, did you have anyone trying to talk you out of that portion outside of your law buddies who obviously were going to continue down their path? And the reason I ask that is because at some point I imagine, whether it was right in the front of your mind or somewhere tucked back, there was this failed business experience that wasn't too long ago.
Same industry, by the way.
You've put, so it was in pest control.
It was in pest control.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it's not only have I failed at this already, or at least according to your standards.
Yeah.
Then I went and invested this time into another career path.
Yep.
But I'm going to erase that and go jump back, not on just the horse of being a business owner or starting a business or being an entrepreneur, but I'm going to go jump on the exact same horse in the same industry, I imagine there was some sort of angst or doubt that crept in there. And I'd love to hear what you did maybe between the years, mindset wise, to prepare to be able to do that again in that time frame. Are you a big reader, or what were you digesting that could give you the spine to go and do that?
Yeah. I mean, I've been a big reader in business, like self-help, entrepreneurship, money for the last like 20 years, like thousands of books, north of 1,000 at least. And, kind of going back to your question about like, what was my circle like? And no one was really saying, hey, Allan, you shouldn't do this. But when I would tell people, like I got a lot of the, wait a minute, you're going to move from Phoenix to Detroit. And Detroit at the time, this is over a decade ago, wasn't in great shape. And then wait, you're gonna quit your legal job, like you're an attorney, reputable firm, making good money, partnership track, the whole thing, wear a suit to work, and you're gonna become a bug guy? So I got a lot of that. I didn't really have people trying to talk me out of it. The only person that I really cared what they had to say anyway was my wife.
Yeah.
And I go home from work one day after talking to my brother, who's my business partner, and I'm like, so I think I'm going to quit my job. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, I think I'm going to start a pest control company. And she's like, okay. And I think we're going to like pack the small kids up and move to Detroit to do it. And she looks at me and she's like, let's freaking go.
Yeah.
So I didn't have anybody trying to talk me out of it. I had the only person I really cared in my corner, and she's been like that till today. I sent her a text like 2 hours ago, no joke. I was right in the middle of a meeting, and I said something like, I'm going to get all emotional too. I'm a really emotional guy, but I said something like, hey, thanks for allowing me to live my dream of being an entrepreneur. So I always had that in my corner, but, I have this saying that risk is a lot less scary than regret. So at this moment where I'm quitting my legal job, I move into a 2-bedroom apartment in Detroit. My brother's sleeping on the living room couch. I have 2 small kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. And we're all crammed in this little apartment, dude. We'd saved some money to start the business. And, dude, I just didn't look back. And there were some really rough days. But I go after stuff. I have a really high risk tolerance. And I had a decent safety net. Worst came to worst, I could go beg for my job back, move back to, I think my pride would have been affected more than anything doing that. But I didn't really ever look for a way out because I care a lot about what my 65-year-old self has to say.
Yeah.
What somebody a couple decades down the road has to say.
Yeah.
So, but it was scary, man. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Did you have a business partner the first go around before law school?
Yeah, so it was my brother.
Okay.
So we tried
Same business partner.
Same business partner.
Okay.
We tried to start a pest control company, undercapitalized, immature. He and I couldn't get along. He sticks with pest control. I go to the law. And then I've been practicing a few years. He has this opportunity to sell a pest control company, sell his interest in it. I'm hearing about this. And so I'm like, dude, maybe it's time, and this is almost a decade later. This is, 7, 8 years later. And so we give it another shot.
Yeah.
Kind of stuck this time.
Well, I want to stay on that topic if you're okay with it.
Of course.
If I remember the number right, because it's jumped out at me a little bit.
Yeah.
You have over 15 business partners currently.
Yep. 21.
Okay, so you have 21 business partners currently today.
Yep.
One of them is your brother.
Yep.
You had a history of not getting along.
Yep.
There's the family aspect of things.
For sure.
So obviously, or at least it occurs for me, that you're a big believer in business partners and partnerships and your ability to, what I would imagine, scale as a result of pulling people together and going and taking care of things. Tell me about your philosophy around business partners, or, if you had any advice around, do I start this business on my own, or how have business partners impacted what you've created?
Oh, for sure. So I love this saying, and I didn't come up with it, but if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Okay.
And one of my personal core values is to bring someone along. Now, I get the argument of not having business partners. I do. It is freaking hard. And the interesting thing is business partners, and I'm an aggressive type of guy. Like, I'll tell you how I feel. You can butt heads, even though you know deep down, both of you want the same result, and that's the success and viability of the company. But you still will disagree about how to get there. So I get that argument. But the best decisions that I've made, professionally speaking and probably financially speaking, has been to partner with different people. So I currently have 21 business partners. I have 29 businesses. Now, some of them are sister companies in the same industry, but I have 8 to 10 folks who were my partners or tried to onboard them as such that are no longer business partners of mine. And I have different relationships with those individuals. Some I will never talk to again in my life, partly because of me, partly because of them, all the way to people I still text almost every day. Yeah. But you can screw a lot of things up in business and still be okay if you have somebody that's got your back. When you're a business partner with somebody and you know it's like a spouse in life where it's like, hey, it's ride or die. It's us against the world. Dude, there's a lot of comfort in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lonely days as entrepreneurs. But when there's somebody, tough conversation on the way here, actually, one of my business partners, real tough. But I know at the end of the day, he's not going to quit on me. I'm not going to quit on him. We're going to figure it out. And there's so much value in that. And there's so much value in diversity. Like, I'm a very logical, linear, I'm an aggressive guy. I'm an attorney. I did practice commercial litigation. So I'll go after people. And then I have partners that are like super creative or they're super sensitive. They know how to connect with people. And so I look at having business partners a little bit like diversifying your assets. Because you're like saying, okay, it's not just me and my skill set. It's us and our skill set out there. So, I mean, I love talking about partnerships because I've been through a lot of them over the last decade. And I'm passionate about that topic. I would not be where I am today without my partners. There's no way. And I'm just getting started.
Yeah. My wife and I use the saying, and I wish I could give credit to whoever taught it to us. I believe it was something on social media we once heard, but it's this phrase of make up or break up.
Yeah.
And if it's not break up, then let's start making up.
Yeah.
You know, and
I like that.
it's allowed us to stomp out things and not let them linger, you know, that are silly anyways. But it's allowed us to also create boundaries. And so we use a saying like that. If we feel like something's getting a little petty, one of us will just call each other out. We'll make up or break up.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, we're not going to break up because you forgot to do, you know, like this. All right, well, great. Then let's start making up. Get over it. Like, and let's start moving. And it's been great. Do you have anything that you could refer out to others on how you've created good synergy or good relationship or workability with your business partners when times get tough? Do you have any go-to methods around that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like, and I'm an angel investor. So I've started to apply this when I'm looking for companies to invest in. But when I look for a partner or a founder that I'm investing in, there's one thing and then there's, you know, everything else. And that thing is, do I believe that this is an individual that will wake up the morning after a really crappy day, get punched in the face over and over and over, and just try again or not? And if I get to the point where I'm like, okay, this individual, they won't quit. Like, it doesn't matter if we go at each other. It doesn't matter what happens. So, and then everything else, like experience, like can they sell, like all these other things, right? Skill set.
Right.
But if they have that one thing, nothing else matters because they'll figure it out.
You're a baseball guy. So what I hear is that you're okay drafting talent.
Yeah.
You know, and you can work with that and develop and put them in a system and get them in the organization. And then, you know, greatness can come out of that. You're not afraid of,
exactly.
you know, developing.
Exactly. I'm a huge Atlanta Braves fan, and all of our pitchers, like we kind of like just bring them up through the farm system, and it's kind of like that. It's like, hey, now skill set, experience, all that stuff matters. Like, what's the team? If I'm looking, at a founder, I look at the founder or founding team. Then I look at the rest of the team. Then I look at how they manage cash. If I get those three things right, I have a decent shot of making some money. But with a partner, so that's kind of looking at it before you bring them on board. But after you bring them on board, it's like a marriage, right? You just figure things out. Like it's dude, I love that makeup or breakup, because you're not going to break up. So what's the other option? It's makeup. So, but a big part of that is you stand by your partner when they're wrong. It's hard.
Yeah.
But if it's not detrimental to the company and there's other people that are aware of what's going on, and you can have private conversations one-on-one where it's like, dude, I don't know about this one. I think you might be a little off. But to the general public, it's like when you're a parent, like your kid will say, go to mom and say, hey, can I play video games for an extra hour? She'll say no. Come to you. Hey, can I play video games for an extra hour? The kid already knows the answer. And so and I think life has a way of trying to drive that wedge, whether it's employees, whether it's, tough financial times between partners. And it's like, right or wrong, you're together on that. So I think that's a big a pointer for partners. But it's, dude, and my partners will tell you, dude, I've screwed up. I think most of what I've learned is from doing things the wrong way, especially with partners. But they're so important to me that I care a lot about getting better and just kind of working on it. But dude, if you have your partner's back and you show them that you're loyal, even when you might be on the fence with a particular issue, dude, they're going to return the favor most of the time. Sometimes the partnership's just not going to work, but those are the partners that, you really invest in.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about upfront. You told me some of the things that you're looking for when you're vetting the partner.
Yeah.
Does your legal background and mind, are you particular around setting up certain operating agreements and co-creating agreements prior to going into business? Do you have a philosophy of we'll figure it out later, or what does that play into? Because I've seen a lot of business partners where they get into the trenches and it's they might remember their agreement differently, and don't have a home base to go and reference. How are you around creating operating agreements, or maybe a little bit of that to setting up a partnership? Do you have any thoughts around the setting up the business formally before you go into it?
Yeah, for sure. This is such a good question, because so lawyers aren't typically good at business. Lawyers, especially litigators and like physicians, there's certain groups of people. And the reason why litigators aren't good at business, especially with startups or entrepreneurship, is because if something comes across my desk as a litigator, something went wrong, especially a commercial litigator, because I'm just seeing businesses fall apart. So we get this mentality that, like a doctor thinks everybody's sick, right? Because all they do is see sick people all day. That's what happens with lawyers. And so I had to break out of that mentality, but I took some of it with me into business, because you have this dichotomy of, hey, we got to move and we got to move fast when you're starting a business, because you're going to have a bunch of hurdles. And if you get those small wins in early, then you build some momentum and, there's some viability of the company on one hand. You're excited, and then on the other, it's like, hey, let's figure out how to do this right. Let's get it set up. And so I have a very specific method. So I do handshake deal first. Let's get general terms over dinner. We're just talking. We've been talking maybe 6-8 months. Let's get that. Then we do, nothing starts yet with handshake deal. It's just like, hey, we're still talking. Then I draft a formal memorandum of understanding. And that's just a fancy way of saying we're going to put the material terms down, and I'm going to send it via an email, and you're going to say, I agree to that. And here's the kicker, is that
This is your terms, or do you guys kind of co-create that agreement?
Exactly. So the memorandum of understanding is basically what that handshake deal was, with just kind of a few touches, few clarifying points. It's written out. You can see it.
This is how I remember our conversation
Exactly.
and our handshake deal.
Exactly.
Is this how you remember it as well? This
Exactly.
is kind of the foundation of us moving forward.
Exactly. And it's a short and sweet email, but it has like the big rocks that you're putting in the jar, right? Material terms.
Maybe percentage of ownership.
Exactly.
Who's-
Capital contributions,
Okay.
if there's a loan involved, like if we talked about exit versus not. And some things may be, hey, we talked about this stuff, not necessarily set in stone, but I get that in writing. I send it over to the other party. I give them the opportunity. Hey, did I understand you correctly? Are we on the same page with this? If so, go ahead and just reply with agreed. If not, red line, whatever, make sure that we get to a mutual understanding. But we try to do that part really quickly. And the reason why is because we have all this momentum, man. We're freaking synergizing. We're talking about all our ideas for our business. And that's monumental to getting a business off the ground. You got to move before you have all the answers. And the lawyer in me is like, no. Get that operating agreement, get it signed. But do the memorandum of understanding, have those points, get that agreed, start your business. So that's the point where we're opening bank accounts, we're getting organized, articles of organization, all that stuff. And we're already moving. We're already doing stuff. We're investing in marketing, whatever it is. During that process, the next 3 to 6 months, now we're working on the operating agreement, which is a more formal agreement, which my operating agreement is usually about 40 pages of the most boring boilerplate jargon out there. The reason why I get the business moving before operating agreement is because the operating agreement is this really weird phase of a business where you feel at odds with your partner because they may want something in there that you don't want. It's very typical. Hey, and I always say, hey, go take it to a lawyer that's not me and go review it. I'm doing this right now with one of my companies. We're going through this phase where I'm like, hey, I advise you to go get advice from someone that's not me for just your personal interest. So there's this really weird phase where it's like, I want this in there. And the cool thing about already having the memorandum of understanding and the business up and going is it's like, hey, we're already in this. We're going to figure out this operating agreement, just like we're going to figure out any other hurdle we're going to come across in the next 5, 10 years, whatever duration of our business. Yeah. But it's not going to, so you have best of both worlds. We're moving, we're keeping that motivation, that energy, but you still have, hey, let's protect this. If something happens to you, man, I want your wife taken care of. That's that operating agreement. And this is the kicker, man, right here. Don't ever use that operating agreement in an argument. You don't use it to bust it out and say, hey, this is where, I have the voting rights, or that will crush your partnership. You have it there for a rainy day. Something happens to the business. That is like the last ditch effort. That agreement is there so that everybody feels better, but you don't bring it up to wave it in somebody's face. Yeah. That's one thing I've learned, and I've learned it the hard way, where you just figure it out. You tell your partner, hey, man, we've got that operating agreement, but I don't care about that. It's me and you, and we're going to figure this out. That's worked for me. It's taken me years to figure that process out, but, it's kind of my little model that seems to work.
No, well, thank you for shedding some more light on that. I mean, 21 business partners it's amazing. I imagine that there might be some crossover here or there with a few of them, but man, that's a lot of different relationships to cultivate.
21 different business partners.
Wow.
21 different individuals. Yeah,
not entities. Like
no, this is
business partners.
So some of my business partners I have multiple businesses with, but this is 21. Like if they all came in here, there would be 21 different human beings.
That's amazing. Tell me this, back to, you jumped back on the horse of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You moved across the country. You've got a small family. You've got a wife. You've got a brother that's living with you in an apartment.
Yep.
How long before you felt like we've crossed over this hurdle from the first time you went there? Did you do it in the first year? Was this a by year 3, we knew we were here to stay? What was that timeline like before you really thought, man, we did it, like we made it?
You know, that's such a good question. Like what's that we made it moment, right? And it's something that, you know, I battle really hard with imposter syndrome. Dude, I still don't feel like I made it, you know, and I never have to work again a day in my life.
Yeah. Maybe I could rephrase that from a point of, this company is here to stay.
So my first company, it never got off the ground, so we didn't even get the appropriate licensing.
Okay.
But no, there was, even those first few months of, you know, round 2, that I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is going to work, because I saw the bank account, you know, ticking down, because we had a bunch of upfront expenses, startup.
Yeah.
But, you know, a month or 2 in, we started to see the sales. We're really good at marketing, saw the sales start to pick up. And so a month or 2 in, I'm starting to feel a lot more comfortable. And, you know, in the first 4 months of our business, and this is rare, this is less than 1% of businesses, but we had done, you know, right around $600,000 in revenue. And so just seeing that made it feel a lot better. So we definitely dumped some gasoline. But that first month or 2, I remember checking the bank account balance, and it's like just kind of ticking down. And I'm like, man, this needs to like switch here pretty soon.
Still close enough to the dock to
Yeah.
hop back or swim back real quick before you get too far out there.
Yep.
Oh, great. How long did you stay in that domain of pest control before you started an additional business outside of pest control? Because my understanding is that it looks like you grew to some multiple branches, and so you expanded in that domain of pest control, or being a bug guy, to, all right, I'm going to start looking at some other opportunities, because you just have, I mean, you have a marketing agency and you're investing in other deals. You have, you know, as an angel investor or startups, you know, those kind of things. Like, how long before you left the domain of pest control?
So it was 4 or 5 years. And that's the thing that a lot of people, like, they'll DM me or whatever and be like, hey, Allan, I want to do what you do, where you got your hands in a bunch of stuff. And first thing I do is try to talk them out of it. And like, I don't know if you want that. Like, it's a heavy burden sometimes. And if they're like, no, I want it. It's like, okay, well, you got to start with one. And that one, you, for several years, I don't know if it's 2 years, I don't know if it's 5, but for several years, I know what the measuring stick is. And that is, it has to be able to grow without you. Not, it has to be able to survive without you. It has to grow without you. So whatever the amount of time that is, you have to be, that is your freaking heart and soul. I didn't travel, dude, for 2 or 3 years. I didn't do anything. It was like, I was all in. That was my end all be all. Has to be. I had this kid one time, he came in to my office. He said he wanted to ask me a few questions. He brings this big old green notebook. He like slaps it down on my desk. He's like, yeah, Allan, I know you have a marketing company, you have a law firm, you have a real estate investing company, you have all these things. He's like, I want to do that. I have all these ideas and I want you to tell me which ones I should pursue. And so I was just like kind of biting my tongue, but I'm like kind of flipping through. I'm like, okay, this is a cool idea. This is a cool idea. I'm like, but it doesn't, couple of things. You're not going to like what I have to say right now. But you can make most of these ideas work. It's not really, business isn't about the idea. People are always like, I got an idea. So what? Everybody's got an idea. What are you going to do about it? That's what I care. Anyway, so he's like, I'm like, this is actually a pretty cool idea. I'm like, but I need you to do me a favor. I need you to take that notebook. And I'm like, I know you think I'm going to tell you to burn it. I'm not going to tell you to burn it. I need you to go put it on a really high shelf. If you have another business idea, awesome. You take that green notebook down, you write down your business idea, and you put it back on that shelf. And when that company, whichever one you decide, that one company is able to grow without you, go get that book and go to number 2 on the list. dude, he couldn't do it. He struggled for years. This has been like 7 or 8 years. I've kind of followed him on social media. Couldn't do it, dude. He tried to do everything at once. You can't. You have to put your heart and soul into one business, your startup. I think what happens is you learn the recipe. If you're just dabbling like I do now, where it's like, I'll have a call here, a meeting there. It's like, you don't get your knuckles into it like you need to figure out how to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in regret. I think that most things happen because they were what was meant to happen at that phase of your life. But if you could rewind to year 4 or 5 before you started venturing out, because I saw that look in your eyes of, are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to do what we're doing? And I've heard the phone calls, and I've spent some time with you, and I know what could come of multiple businesses mixed with multiple business partners. Is there something that you could have today, Allan, would have told yourself back then to avoid, be a little bit more patient on, be a little bit more aggressive with? Hey, maybe just stay in the pest control world and just grow and not dabble. Do you have anything that today Allan would tell Allan in year 4 or 5 in the pest control route? Yeah,
it would be branch out, but do it more slowly.
Yeah.
So, and maybe closer to your core business. So, I'm trying to remember what my second business from pest control was. I think it was my digital marketing agency. So I went from bug guy to like digital marketer, which is a completely different industry. And
in the name of helping existing business grow, or in the, there was just an opportunity to be had that you look to take advantage of?
So the way that I build businesses is usually by solving a problem that one of my other businesses has.
Okay.
So my pest control company had issues with marketing. We'd done it all. We'd hired external agencies. We did it in-house. We did a quasi marketing direct, all these things. And then I decided, hey, I got to just pull the trigger on this. But I think I did too many too fast, and some failed. And dude, the word failure, like, I really struggle with because, and it's something I care a lot about, is that, dude, failure is like, it gets such a bad rap in our society. And there's just like, because I think if people weren't so scared of failure, they'd try more. And anyway, but I definitely like, I have a software company, right, that I've spent almost $1 million on, and it's gonna survive, but man, we're struggling right now. And so there's, if that's all I had, if all I had to do was focus on my software company, I'd be in pretty good shape. But I think that would be it, though.
Maybe that green notebook advice.
Yeah.
All right.
That same advice.
Get it there. Get it to where it's growing without you.
Yeah.
Go back to the top shelf, grab your notebook, and go pack.
The difference is, as opposed to my first startup, all the subsequent startups, I use this model of finding a partner that's like a technician that has this like entrepreneurial spirit. So this combo, my partner Matt with Lizard Marketing, he's super creative, but he wanted a business. So he's a salaried employee, but he gets equity. And so because it's not all up to me, I have somebody with skin in the game running the show. It does make it a little easier than it just being my first startup. Yeah. But I think everyone needs to follow their own path to some degree. And for me, one of my like demons, right? One of the thoughts that comes into my head is, oh, you got lucky with pest control. And so what do I do?
Well, which time? The first time or the second time?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely didn't the first time. And so my response to that thought is, Okay, cool. I'm going to go do it in a different industry. And then I'm going to do it in a different industry. And then I'm going to do it in an industry, software development. And that story is still to be told, but I have zero experience developing software. So it's kind of funny, like the reasons why, I'm following a certain path, but that was part of it. It was like, dude, what is it saying about who I am and what I can build?
Yeah. Speaking of building and scaling, you are continuing to build and scale your own brand and sharing how you've done what you've done and what your plans are to do what you're going to do. Talk to us about social media and some of your thoughts on where social media and marketing through the different socials is helping your companies, or how you feel or what you would encourage around others utilizing social media to grow.
Yeah, so I'm on this mission to help 10,000 people make short-term sacrifices to build businesses and wealth.
10,000. That's a real number.
So I do some business coaching on the side. I only take 2 clients at a time just because of my schedule. And one of my top level goals with my partners is to have 50 millionaire partners by the time I'm 50. And I'm at 8 or something. So I've got some work to do.
Yeah.
But
how old are you now?
43.
All right. We got 7 years.
Yeah. So, but with social media, so the emphasis on kind of my goal to help the 10,000 people make short-term sacrifices to build businesses and wealth. One of the problems is that social media is out there making it look like you can do it all without sacrifice. And so my mission is to rebut that and make because it's all fake stuff, right? It's people renting Lambos and taking, videos of themselves in these. Dude, I saw this.
I'm going to press on you a little bit. What I heard you just say, it's all fake stuff.
Yeah, that's exaggeration.
Okay.
There's some.
You're saying that it's more apparent, at least what I'm hearing you say, is that, man, it's not as authentic as I would like it to be. I feel that people are getting this maybe a get-rich-quick vibe of entrepreneurship, and they're doing it through a little bit of parlor tricks to make it look like it's a little easier, more successful, quicker.
Yeah.
And you're on a mission to give your version of what a day in a life is according to you.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And I like that you clarified that, because there's bits and pieces of truth within different characters, right? Different influencers, where every once in a while they'll say, like there's this dude out there that's saying that anybody that doesn't have a 6-pack, he fires. It's like, dude, what's funny is I watched this video. He's like, no 6-pack, you're fired. And I was thinking, I immediately thought, dude, Elon Musk doesn't have a 6-pack. You would fire Elon Musk? Anyway, but then I watched another one of his videos, spot on. He's talking about how don't overextend yourself, reinvest in yourself, the same stuff that I'm kind of saying, not the Gucci belts and all that fancy crap that doesn't mean anything that you buy to impress other people. And so that clarification that you made, I think it's very important, because you have to kind of sift through it. So my entire thing is I'm just trying to make it real. Yeah. I'm just out there trying to say some of my best days of my life have been because of entrepreneurship. Yeah. Some of the very worst days of my life have been because of entrepreneurship. Sometimes you just get the first part of that.
Yeah.
And so, and not only that, I'm trying to help them see which sacrifices. Hey, I created these 10 laws that govern money. I believe that building a business and building wealth I think there are eternal principles that govern it. Just like if I climb the top of the building, reach over, drop a pen, all of us know what's going to happen. It's going to fall to the ground because of the law of gravity. I believe that there are laws that govern money, and if you follow certain laws, you're almost guaranteed to be wealthy. Well, one of my laws, which is not a very popular one, is that you should not have any really luxury or toy until you have at least $1 million net worth. Now, $1 million isn't very much anymore, But no, and what I mean by that is like no super expensive car, no really nice house. Like till you have $1 million net worth, you sacrifice those things until you do. And the reason why you do that is because there's this time value of money, and you can invest that as opposed to, you know, putting it to a car or whatever. You can put it in something else that will make you money as opposed to cost you money. But that's kind of my mission right now, is just to kind of cut through the crap. And you're right, there is some good stuff out there. 5-10% maybe of good stuff out there that will actually lead you down the path, versus what happened is all the flash and the glam, that's what gets the views. It's the stuff that, like, you know, people driving around nice cars and stuff. Dude, and I love nice cars, by the way. Like several Ferraris, like I'm on the Ferrari list. I have a tailor-made SF90 that's $1 million car that's being built right now in Italy. But I didn't do that crap until I was wealthy. That's the difference. And a lot of people are like, Allan, you're a hypocrite because you have this nice stuff. No. I'm following the laws. It's just, you know.
I think that it's one of the things I enjoy about you, because you're giving what occurs for me as an authentic feedback on scenarios that you've lived through. I attended school. I had multiple degrees. I even went to law school. I am not an advocate for formal education unless it's to specialize in something. I've got a lot of fun toys, you know, expensive fun toys. Mm-hmm. You travel and play the nicest golf courses in the world, you know, and those kind of things. Yet, man, don't do it to be flashy. Like, do it, you know, there was a road that got me to where I'm at.
Yep.
And you spend time on that rather than listen to me because, you know, look at the Ferrari, look at the golf course, like, look at me.
Yeah.
Now listen to me. It's like, no, listen to me because what I created. And then whatever you choose to do with that wealth once you create it is up to you.
Yep.
For me, yeah, I like cars. I've got a brother that likes to golf, and you know that's what works for us. But you do you once you get there. That's what I've done once I've gotten to where I was looking to go, and I like that about you.
Yeah, I think that's. I think it's a really good, like, clarifying point, and that is, why do you have the Gucci belt? For some people, it's like, dude, I wouldn't care if nobody saw me. That's not why I have it. I'm not doing it for the gram, right? I'm doing it because, you know, it says something about me. I have this huge shoe collection. It's ridiculous. Hundreds of pairs of Jordans. I'm a big Jordan guy, and the reason why I'm a big Jordan guy is because I grew up during the Jordan era, and his shoes were getting released when I was a little kid, and that's all I wanted, man. My parents couldn't afford them. And so now I have, like, in my home office, like, a lot of my decor is like my Jordans, and I just have them like across, like, my built-in, like, cabinets right there. And for me, it's like, it's not to show everybody else, it's to show myself, because then I'm like, I can buy whatever pair of shoes I want because of, you know, what I've gone through and the sacrifices that I've made. So that's a big part of it, is why. Like, are you doing it for other people, or are you doing it for yourself? And, you know, and the reason why it's important, what your why is because, like, it's not going to, if you're, you know, buying the fancy clothes or trying to go on fancy trips or whatever, if you're doing that because of what other people think, because eventually you'll have money, you're wrong. That's the part that bothers me about Instagram. It's like, that's what it makes it look like. It's like these guys or girls that have all this money and stuff, and they flash it around. It's like people think that's why they're wealthy. First of all, most of them aren't. There's a really cool book written called The Millionaire Next Door. And the idea is that, like, the most wealthy people, you wouldn't know they're wealthy, right? I saw this picture one time, and it was Mark Zuckerberg and Warren Buffett together. And at the bottom, it said, not a Gucci belt in sight.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's that idea. But, you know, getting back to it, if, like, if there's something deeper, if it means something to you or whatever, then go for it. But do it responsibly.
Yeah, I mean, from the amount of content you're producing, it's amazing to think that you have all these other businesses in place, functioning, rolling. I imagine you have something around systems and processes and reporting. Can you give me an idea of how you interact with your leadership teams? Is it Mondays for or kind of your systems and processes days? Do you do it? I mean, I find it hard to believe that you're getting with 21 people every day, let alone every week, from different business partners. Can you touch on how you're scaling from an operations standpoint and how you're managing all of that?
So I have arguably the best executive assistant in the world.
Yeah.
Her name's Jana. So she helps me like stay organized with schedule and stuff. But so I have regular meetings with certain companies. And I'm working regularly with companies that need me, and it changes over time. So I have some partners. There's 5 of us, and we built an online course to help people build their pest control companies. It's actually a really cool idea. And I haven't had a meeting with that team in a month, probably, because they're just kind of cooking, doing their thing. I'll hear about it. I'll get some updates. I do look at the financials of every single company every month. I review those. But it just depends on the company. My executive assistant helps me stay organized, helps me know what companies need what. But I do have regular meetings right now for companies that need me. But it's a juggling act, and dude, sometimes it's not pretty.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's catch up. Like I'll miss something, I'll make a mistake, and just because I wear quite a few hats. But my schedule is really important to me. If it's not on my schedule, it doesn't get done. But a lot of my leadership style is to hire somebody and let them do their job. I always say, hey, if 2 of us are doing the same thing, then one of us isn't necessary.
Yeah.
So I do that with my partners, where I let them kind of, go out there, and my partners get a really good feel of how much they need me. So at any time, they could like call me, hey, Allan, I need you. Like, let's do this meeting. Had a huge payroll issue with my law firm on Friday, and I don't do a lot of day-to-day stuff with them. I hopped in, made some phone calls, and so it's just kind of more on a as-needed basis.
Love it. Well, what's on the horizon? Are you staying with what you have? Do you have any projects that you're looking forward to? Our relationship, well, let's call it golf first, is where it started. A common passion, but jumped right into investment relationship.
Yep.
You did. I mean, super grateful for
that
the
was
way
awesome.
our relationship scaled. 7-figure investor. So if you're wondering about validity, it's just not a lot of people that can quickly move 7 figures. It was a really cool opportunity to get to know you and start to form our relationship. But
that was awesome.
What's on the horizon now? You have anything you're looking forward to investment wise?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for aggressive startups. I think I'm going to follow in your tracks in the next 3 to 5 years and create a fund, investment fund. I think in the next 5 to 7 years, I'm going to have some form of incubator where I help software companies find resources and invest in them that way. And
why are you going to start a fund?
I'm sorry?
Why would you start a fund?
I love analyzing businesses. I love I love getting behind people I believe in. And I love helping people make money. And so if I've helped other companies raise money. I haven't really raised money on my own, and I want that pressure. I know it's different, but I haven't done it. So I want to experience that. I want to find out, because I feel like I'm going to have kind of this higher respect for funds that I don't have necessarily right now, although I'm very, I'm a very frugal individual. So I don't know, dude. I just want to learn about that process. Like, I'm just very interested in learning, because I think folks that can raise money are some of the greatest salespeople on earth. Yeah. And I don't think I'm at that level, but I want to get there. So that's kind of a big, reason for me.
Well, I'm excited for you to open that door when it comes. What I heard you say is that you're interested in aggressive startups. What I would like about a fund model is would allow you to diversify amongst those and one, scale. Like, that's one of the themes that I love most about our funds is the ability to buy large assets or pull large sums of money together, and scale. But man, I think that with your investing style, I think that one, you could do it. And two, yeah, if you ever need any help with that, happy to help in any way we can.
I appreciate that.
I'm excited for the next couple of years as you go down that road.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
How can people find you?
Yeah. My Instagram, I'm super active. Real Allan Draper. I have a website, allandraper.com. I've been doing this thing where people can schedule a 15-minute appointment with me, talk about whatever. Most of the time it's like, I need help with my startup or something about building wealth. So schedule free 15 minutes. I don't charge people. My coaching is closed, so I don't have anything to sell. It's just more like, I'm on that mission, man. 10,000 people. And, dude, I don't know if I'm ever going to like track it, but I've had 400 of those calls where I just met with somebody, and some of them work out where they go build something. Some of them don't, but that's my way to kind of perpetuate that mission.
Is that your version of like what would be a Shark Tank? Like you spend some time with somebody, you hear a good idea, you might be able to lend support, and then in a possible investment opportunity or partnership? Or is that a little bit more in the reciprocity domain where if you can help enough people get to what you want as a result, your name, your reputation, those things will be out there, maybe a little bit of both? What's your theory behind issuing your time? Because time for me is about as valuable as a commodity as someone could give. That's a pretty big commitment for you to give your time. And I know how busy you are. So what's the thought process behind giving your time, or what's the strategy behind it?
Yeah. So it's definitely a mix, because I have found investments, opportunities. I found employees. I found partners doing that, but it's probably like, just looking at the ratio, it's probably 80% like me just giving advice. But if it's a good match where it's like, hey, I like this founder, I like what they're doing, then I'll kind of make a pitch. But that's rare. It might be 90-10, to be honest, but it is a way for me to like, get in touch with these people at an early stage and see if there's something there.
I didn't know that about you. That is something I will for sure, refer out as people approach, what should I do? It's like, hey, you should go to allandraper.com is where they would find that.
Yep. There's a scheduling link up there. And dude, I've had some crazy conversations. I've had everything from like, hey, I'm, buying my first house to, I want to start a beekeeping business and everything in between, like talking about wealth, talking about, there was a partner that called me once and he was trying to buy out his other partner. So we've talked about all sorts of stuff. So it's like, there's no obligation. It's just like, hey, if you have a problem. And what's funny is I had one the other day, and he called me for advice about accounting, and I realized that he was in the wrong business. And so we started talking about his business model, even though he called me because he wanted to talk about accounting. And that's how a lot of them go too. It's like, okay, we can talk about how your accounting is working right now and how to structure certain things, but actually I think there's some bigger issues here. So that's a lot of them too, is like, hey, Allan, I don't even know what to ask you. This is where I'm at. What can you help with?
Yeah, it's a fun time when you realize. I think it'll always occur for myself as a real estate guy. Technically now we're in the financial services space and alternative investments, but yeah, that was a fun realization of where you actually need to be. Well,
for sure.
I appreciate your time today. We spent a lot more than 15 minutes, and I think we could spend a few hours more.
Sure.
I would hope people look you up. You're up to things in the world, and you're a good person. One of my favorite things about you is you have an optimistic spirit about you, and the vibes that come from that are contagious, and
for sure.
As much what you might call real content around the rainy days of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I hope people can see that sense of you're only telling it to people, and maybe because you went through them, but kept that optimistic mindset around, you're just getting over the other side of this, or getting through these trials or these rainy days, or putting out these fires. It's great. I hope more people get to know you. I appreciate your time. you're a prime example of there's a million ways to make $1 million, and I hope more people get to hear from you. And thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Dad, are you sure you know what you're doing?